Okay, I've got a question here from Colin McLaughlin. Hope I said that right.
McLaughlin.
Oh, yeah?
Maybe. Is that FF? Nope, nope. You're right. McLaughlin.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm considering cutting a yard off of my great kilt. Apparently, this is a whole great kilt show.
It's the all great kilt all the time.
Yeah. As there is simply too much material, are there any notable do's or don'ts I should know about before I do this? And what can I make with that extra yard of material? I'm thinking of a sash for my sister.
Okay. So you got a great kilt, too much fabric.
Yeah.
You want to chop it down. All right. Let's start with the do's and don'ts of cutting down a great kilt.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
some practical, like, sewing.
Cloth cutting. Yeah. Yes, indeed. All right. So we're going to work under the assumption that he bought the fabric from us or from a company that has provided Scottish wool cloth or yes, cloth woven in the UK in their tartan. So that way we know it's not like Walmart fabric where we don't know if it's a plain weave or a twill weave or something like that.
It's important.
So let's assume that it is a twill weave. This is important for what I'm about to say next. So let's say you have a 5-yard great kilt and you want to make it a 4-yard great kilt. Great. And you're going to leave the ends cut or fringe the end a little bit. Okay. So take a scissors. This is the scary bit. Take a scissors and cut at the 4-yard mark. Measure twice, cut once, boys and girls. Measure out 4 yards, make a little chalk mark, verify it's correct 100 times before you cut it. Once you cut it, you can't uncut it. And then you're going to cut at that 4-yard mark, let's say 2 inches into the cloth. Now, twill cloth will rip straight. So once you have 2 inches cut in, grab this side of the cut and the other side of the cut with your hands firmly and rip straight apart, literally as fast as I just did. Don't pull it slowly, because when you pull it slowly and you're pensive in your ripping, you're actually going to let the fibers and the individual strands of wool kind of pull and stretch, and then you end up with like puckering on either side of the cut. So grab it, do the old, Hanukkah Donica, grab it and rip as fast as you can, and it will rip straight, I promise you. The only time where it gets a little bit weird is if you're ripping like near the end of a bolt of cloth. So if it's like you want to cut 2 inches or so off of the end of a piece of fabric, then it can get a little bit wonky, because when you pull fast, some of the fabric or some of the fibers may just release, and then you end up with like, this kind of looking thing on the end. But if you're ripping straight down the middle of a bolt, or, let's say 6 inches in or more into the center of the bolt of cloth, just grab it and rip as fast as you can. You want to start it with a 2-inch or so notch, not notch, but a singular straight cut. And when you pull it, I promise you it'll go straight.
Yeah.
Ian, your thoughts?
So, yes, it's important to consider that that piece of material is going to have nice kilt selvages, assuming we're still talking about Scottish cloth sourced from us or somewhere else. It's going to have nice kilt selvages on the long edges. The short edges, we give you a choice of how they're finished. You're probably going to want both sides to match. So if we hemmed the short edges for you, do you have the skill to hem that yourself, or do you have somebody who can do it for you? Something to pay attention to, because I want to open up to the possibility they got this great kilt elsewhere. Did whoever made it, did they tear it or did they cut it? And if it's cut on one side versus torn on the other, is that going to bother you? It probably shouldn't bother me, because they're so far apart from each other.
And one's on the underside.
One's under. It shouldn't bother me, but I'm picky and it would. So
now, okay, well let's
you can cut
this.
too, but it's a much cleaner. Not that the other one's not clean. That's not a great way to put it, but
correct. But there's a reason why you rip cloth versus cut cloth. If you cut cloth, okay, and by cut cloth I mean you're following the tartan line straight across the bolt, and snip, snip, snip all the way across on a perfectly straight line. That is much easier to fringe, because it just, the fabric or the individual strands of wool will pull out much easier as you're going across. Now, when you rip the fabric, it's a little bit more difficult to fringe. So it'll actually, in a weird way, kind of like lock it in. It's not going to unravel. It's not a knit like a sweater, where if you get a pull and you pull the whole thing, it's just going to and just disappear. Do not pull this thread as I walk away, to quote Weezer. But it will, you will have an easier or harder time fringing the fabric, fringing the edge if you rip it versus you cut it. So if you cut it, it's easier because it's a nice clean cut edge, clean cut literally, versus if you've torn it, then it's going to be a little bit more difficult to fringe effectively.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Whoa. So what was the other question? He wants to make stuff from it. So
yeah,
what are we going to make from that extra yard of cloth?
Before we get into that, I want to give him one more tip.
Okay.
So if let's say he didn't tell us a specific number of yards, but if you're going from 5 to 4, let's assume that. Who cares if it's 4 yards and 3 inches or 3 yards and 11 inches? What I would say is fold it over to 4 yards, clip it in some way, binder clips or something, wrap it around yourself, see if you like it. And then, okay, actually, I really wish I had 4 more inches. You can still do that. It's not too late. You haven't cut it yet. So it's part of that measure twice, cut once thing.
Fair. It's really more the depth of the pleats.
Mm-hmm.
And or if they find it's just a bit too cumbersome wearing the extra, piece of cloth.
Just don't get caught up on being whole numbers,
I 100% agree. And
don't be afraid to even just shift it an inch either way just to get to a better, cleaner line if you do decide you want to cut it all the way across.
Or if your OCD is such that you absolutely need to have this end of the bolt match that end of the bolt. So this one has a white stripe 1 inch in from the end, and if I cut it at 4 yards, I'm just cutting off the white stripe. No, add an inch. Allow that. Don't freak out later on about your OCD. That I would.
Yeah.
Yes, but think twice, cut once. So make sure you're 100% sure about where you want to cut it.
Yeah.
Now, what are we going to make
from it
with the other bolt or with the other yard of cloth? Emma, we'll bring you in for this as well. You're crafty.
You're apparently Colin's sister.
Yes. So what would you make from a yard double width, so 54 to 60 inches wide, of cloth with a bit of scrap?
Yeah. I'm going with a little pillow for my couch.
Oh,
I would make a cute little pillow.
Little throw pillow?
A little
Very
throw
nice.
pillow. I've made, with some scrap from my kilt, I've made a little bandana to match this kilt that I'm wearing, my Buchanan antique tweed. But that is a little bit of fabric, and you've got a whole yard. So, but yeah, I think I'm going to go a pillow, a little piece of decor. I'm a big home decor person.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, extra yard of cloth. I think Colin had suggested a sash for his sister. I think that's not a bad idea as long as you have the skill to join 2 pieces together and
Splice
put a hem on it. It's a good option. I had another thing in my head, and it is a table runner for your burn supper that you're hosting would be another good way to go. Similar technique for the sash.
Yeah, there's a lot of home projects that people can do. Like if you're the type if you're crafty and you make teddy bears, you can make a teddy bear for your son or your daughter, to be able to grow up with a little piece of their family tartan, and it can become part of your family's lore, your family's heritage, your family's pass it down type things.
Yeah.
Think about the things that were passed down in your family that were given to you, and try to create that for your kids. So if there's a wedding gown or a sash, like just think about what are the things that could mean something later on, something that's not disposable, that's not just a fashion thing, that's not just something that's going to be thrown away, but something that could mean something, and then do that with it. That's kind of where I'd go with it.
I like that.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. You can let me know in the comments below. And also check out usakilts.com for some fantastic Highland wear.